Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And today's episode is brought to you by our Patreon friends. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. Hey, Spoon, what's going on today?
Well, I am sitting here, glad that I'm on a break from my usual Friday workload, and though I got to get back to it when we're done, but certainly have time for the podcast. We have some very depressing weather outside, so that's too bad, but hopefully the upcoming weekend will be a little better. How about you?
I feel the same way, especially when you say depressing. I just closed the pool.
Oh, and I missed the pool. I didn't get to see your pool all season. That's depressing. Yeah, summer seemed to go by real fast. That leads us into the theme for this episode, which is songs related to autumn, autumnal songs. The autumnal songs do not necessarily have to be about mentioning autumn or fall or whatever, or because sometimes there are certain songs that trigger memories of fall or that people turn to this time of year for some reason. Not unlike the way people turn to certain music around Christmas, but in this case, we're talking about the autumn season since it's now late September, and it's time to start thinking about autumn. So I'm assuming you have some songs that relate to autumn, and I know you said you reached out to various friends and listeners for their suggestions. So why don't we kick it off with some songs that people say remind them of this time of year.
Absolutely. I want to thank everybody on our Patreon, all of our Facebook friends, and Spoon, you already mentioned one of them. Are we allowed to say Earth, Wind, and Fire's September would fall into this category, or is that just too darn literal?
Oh, no, not at all. I think that's the point. It can be very literal songs or not. And as I recall, you know somebody who's a big fan of that song.
I do?
Don't you know somebody who always requests that song?
Oh, my wife. I forgot about her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, just my wife that I completely forgot about. Sorry about that, Laurie.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with that.
Oh, yeah, she. I thought you were setting me up for some kind of long, twisted joke that I wasn't at the middle of it yet. But yes, my wife's favorite song on cruises is always Earth, Wind, and Fire September, so much so that whenever we see a live band on a cruise, she basically kicks my leg under the table. Go ask them, because a lot of that kind of entertainment is known to play stuff like that. And the last two cruises we went on, especially the last one we were on before the pandemic, of course, was a bomb cyclone. So besides the weather, the band on that ship really played a great rendition of that. But that's for another argument. We're going to talk about favorite bomb cyclone cruises another time. There's a lot of great music in fall. And Spoon, I know you hit the nail on the head. It's probably easier for me to rattle off a lot of fast ideas talking about Christmas and winter songs. But why don't we take a look and see what our patrons said when we asked them, what is your favorite song about fall? Spoon, before I read any of these names, do you have any guesses?
Sure, but I'm not going to make any guesses. I want to hear what they have to say.
Off we go to Patreon. Let's see what our Patreon family had to say. Rosalind's idea is Autumn Song by Van Morrison.
So yeah, excellent tune. I'm a big Van Morrison fan. I don't have all his albums and all that sort of thing, but my brother and sister and I, really both of my sisters, we love Van Morrison. And that's a nice evocative tune from a very soulful singer from Ireland. So check it out if you've never heard it.
One of my favorite artists, and I feel embarrassed to say that I think she brought this up last year. I don't know if it was in this conversation specifically, and I had to go and research that song. I do like it, but I had not known of it until she brought it to my attention. So thank you very much, Rosalind. And she's not done. That's not her only idea. She also mentions one of my favorite songs. I love the Crosby and Nash version, but Urge for Going by Joni Mitchell.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a very good option right there. That's one of those songs that is sort of about fall, but really it's metaphorically about much more than that. And I just happened to be in the middle of a novel, a detective novel called Troubled Blood it's actually J.K. Rowling writing under her pen name of Richard Galbraith. And it is, or Robert Galbraith rather. It's in a series of detective novels about a pair of detectives. And in this one, it is, and they're awesome. I do the audiobooks and they're really, really good. But it's about a cold case of a woman that's been missing for 30 plus years. And the woman who's investigating this, the detective, was unfamiliar with Joni Mitchell, but knew that that was the missing woman's favorite artist. And she starts listening to it, including that song, and goes from not being prepared for the sort of non-commercial aspect, without a lot of hooks and choruses that Joni Mitchell songs have, into finding it, very moving and starting to see her own troubles in her own life represented in Joni Mitchell's personal strifes and issues. So very cool song, and I think autumn can represent that for a lot of people. It's a major seasonal change, going from bright and sunny to more somber, more serious things, and a good choice. Good work for someone who actually lives up in the area where you get beautiful colors. So I'm not surprised she's coming up with these cool songs.
How about it? New England might make an appearance later in this episode, but that's what we're talking about. And if you thought Rosalind was done giving suggestions, she is. Next is Lee, our friend Lee. I had no idea of this song until I just heard him say it. Forever Autumn by the Moody Blues.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Good job. This is Lee in England. Is that Lee?
It is.
Ah, very cool. Yes, indeed. The Moody Blues. And there's kind of a sequel to this song. The leader of the Moody Blues, his name just ran out of my head. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I can't believe I can't remember it. Did I write this one down? Yeah, Justin Hayward. Justin Hayward and the Moody Blues. He put out a really fascinating album in the 70s, solo album, that is inspired by H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. So it's kind of like, you can't call it really a rock opera or anything, but he actually has a song on that called, that's Forever Autumn. Is that the song he just mentioned?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. That's the sequel. They have another song on one of their albums that's a very autumnal song. The name escapes me. But yes, Forever Autumn is actually on his solo album about the War of the Worlds. Very cool tune and very obscure. I thought I was going to be the only person who remembered that song. So here's a challenge for you, Lee. I expect you to play it at Martin Fest next year. Maybe we can do it in duet.
On which guitar?
Yeah. Well, that's going to have to be up to him. So the idea of him taking his brand new precious baby overseas again, I find highly unlikely. But has that been made public? Do you want to mention that? Amazing guitar, speaking of seasons changing and all that?
It certainly has. We're proud to connect Lee with the Martin D45 Fire and Ice not more than 2 weeks ago, and it was such a fun weekend. He got to claim that guitar, take custody of it, hung out with me and Lori and Clayton and Marshall, and he got to bump into a couple other people that he only ever saw in the chat on the YouTube show. So long story very short, super fun weekend. The only thing wrong with it was he wasn't able to bring Rosanna, and he promised sometime in the future we're going to recreate the whole thing. So good on you, Lee. Thank you very, very much again. And the people who do already know have showered you with, oh my God, I wish it was me, and they have every right to feel that way. So,
yes, indeed. So Fire and Ice has an ice dragon and a phoenix. So kind of autumn coming between winter and summer. You could sort of say that's sort of the fingerboard of that guitar could be the autumn area. But all right, what's the next one from one of our Patreon members?
The next one has an asterisk because I cannot tell you the whole thing at the front. We want to save a little bit of this for a very good finale at the end of this program. Carlos, our friend, says, hard to pick one between Harvest Moon, Moondance, Stormy by Classics 4, and he brings up a fourth song I want to wait a little bit to talk about. So great,
Wow,
three
great.
choices there. I'm really connected with Harvest Moon for sure. He's not the only person. When this whole episode's done, you'll find that voted for that. Moondance, I honestly didn't really put that in my mind as a fall song, but I can totally get it now that he said it.
Well, I'm kind of, I guess I'm the same way. I would have thought about Moondance. It just makes me think of dancing, under the stars or whatever. That sounds more summery to me. But yeah, certainly a lot of moon songs. But Harvest Moon, beautiful tune. It's been covered by a zillion people. There's some really cool covers out there. So if you've never seen some of these other artists covering Harvest Moon in all kinds of musical styles, oh boy, there's one that's escaping me now, but it is, it's got all kinds of like electric guitars and all kinds of stuff in it, but I can't think of it now. I'll jump back. Harvest Moon was supposed to be sort of a sequel to his song, his album, Harvest. And Harvest is one of those tunes from that album that always makes me think of fall and always makes me want to hear it in the fall. But because of the title of the album, every song on that, with maybe the exception of Needle and the Damage Done, is something that makes me think of fall. And when I'm out in fall weather, it makes me think of that album and vice versa, even though the themes of those songs, with the exception of Harvest, doesn't really have anything to do with fall or harvest or autumn necessarily. Mm-hmm. But very good choice. Beautiful song.
I really do have to expand my vocabulary or my my catalog of CDs. If you guys remember what CDs were, I'm not familiar with Stormy from Classics 4. Are you?
If it's a song I'm thinking of, yeah, it's an old classic radio hit, Stormy. But it's one of those things that I don't remember the lyrics per se, just that the chorus has the stormy in it. And when you think of that, stormy weather, songs like that, again, autumn we think of radio weather and things like that. So I can see how various autumn triggers will go off from certain songs, or people will be out in the autumn weather, like the weather we've been having this week in New York City, and think of those kind of songs.
And there is one more song from our patrons I want to bring up. Jasper, he gave me a YouTube link. A lot of you guys were nice enough to give me song titles. Jasper took it further and actually gave me the video to watch. Autumn Leaves by Ava Cassidy.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if it's Ava or Eva Cassidy, but I was so happy that someone came up with this. Autumn Leaves goes way back to the 1940s, maybe 1940, post-war, 47. The original, Jacques Prévin wrote the lyrics to the original, and the composer, let me see if I have this. I don't think I do. Maybe Joseph Costa, one of those people, one of those guys, actually wrote the music. The original French lyrics are completely different than the American lyrics. In fact, the little French translation is dead leaves, or leaves that are dead. But it still has the same sort of metaphors in it about the end of things or the coming end, and can be construed with a relationship and thinking of someone, your relationship's ending or however that goes. Anyway, there's a million versions of it. All the big singers, the Frank Sinatras out there and the Tony Bennett's have all done it. My all-time favorite version is a version that Chet Baker did in the 70s. It's very upbeat. He used to do it in the 50s, back when Paul Desmond would play with him. And then they re-recorded it in a 70s sort of upbeat progressive jazz version that I think the name of the album is called She Was Too Good to Me, and totally worth checking out. Really evocative, cool. I always have it in my phone on my playlist when I'm out doing my marches in the autumn. But that has nothing to do with Cassidy's version, which is absolutely beautiful. I was thinking of trying to come up with guitar songs that are autumnal, and that's one of them. There's a live version of her doing this on YouTube. There's also the record version, but live version of her doing this on YouTube, solo fingerstyle with her cutaway Guild OM. I don't remember what model she played, but unfortunately she didn't live. She died quite young from cancer in the 1990s, and never lived to see how famous she became. Some song, maybe her, yeah, I think it was maybe her Somewhere Over the Rainbow became a hit in England after she died. And that led to a lot of people buying the record, and that led to her becoming much more well-known. But one of the really great covers of a famous standard is her version of Autumn Leaves, and highly recommend the black and white video of her doing it live in concert or on some TV show. Just really haunting, particularly when in the posthumous light of her doing that song. Super, super great tune. So thank you very much for bringing that up, because it was definitely on the top of my list of those kind of songs.
I've been drinking this mug backwards the whole time. I'm sorry.
Now, you had mentioned Earth, Wind, and Fire September at the very beginning of this. September, of course, most of September is in the summer. But I have a trivia question for you. Let's see if you can figure this out. Just like the leader of Moody Blues did an autumn song on his solo album, there's another famous singer who was the lead singer of a famous band that went on to have a solo career, and his solo album, his first, and I'm pretty sure it's his initial solo album, debut solo album, has a song, an autumnal song that is a huge immortal hit that mentions late September. You think of any song that mentions late September from a lead singer that went on to a huge solo career, and this being his first of two hits.
Can you give me like the broadest clue? Don't give it away.
Well, yeah, the person's saying it's late September, so he should be somewhere like back in school.
It just passed through my brain, and
everybody in the audience is yelling it out, but you're in the isolation booth and you can't hear them. Let me just say the other hit on that album was Mandolin Wind.
Doesn't help me.
Oh, good heavens. Rod Stewart, Maggie May.
Faces. Okay, well, okay. All right. Yep. I thought you were going to tell me that in like an hour.
No, I just wanted to see if you could remember what it was.
I must stop you right here. I failed to tell you Carlos's fourth suggestion from our patron list. He brought together Harvest Moon, Moondance, Stormy, and this is the part of the program where I want to sort of find the rules and just bend them to my will, and frankly ask you and the listeners and the viewers, there can be a song that has the word autumn in it, and it's probably going to have a real serious fall and autumnal connotation. There might be songs that don't have anything like that in the title, but the entire message of the lyrics has everything to do with fall. What about if there was a song that had the title meant autumn, but the song lyrics don't? How do you feel about that before I title this song?
I think that's fine. I think anybody, whatever, we ask people for songs that they make them think of autumn. So what is it?
Well, this is October by this guy. It's an original of mine.
Well, thank heavens for that, because I was certainly going to bring that up. I cannot enter October without playing that song. I don't play it myself. I've never been able to sing it the way as well as you do. So but I certainly put, it's on my playlist, and your album always ends up on my phone in October. So absolutely. And I was hoping I could convince you for the airing of this podcast, if you could include either the recording or a video of you playing that tune.
I'd be more than happy to. Why don't we pause for a moment and listen to a sound sample of October by Maury Rutch, technically the Shell Shock Churchills.
Oh, cool. That was very cool. I've never heard you guys do that with the Churchills. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And the way I set that up, and I appreciate that, Carlos. It really means a lot that anybody would even know that, especially including it in one of your favorite songs about anything. The attachment to October and fall in that song is so sentimental, and I really feel like only people who know me through either the podcast or in real life or as a musician and have heard the fact that I've said this is a song about me being married, freshly married. Our honeymoon is in Cape Cod and New England, and this song is just the feeling of being up there at that time of year. I'm not sure if you didn't hear the setup, would you really hear that tune? Like, say, if you didn't know the title and you heard that song, would you really attach all that to it? I feel like you kind of have to know some backstory of that. Once you do, of course, I totally get the feeling that it does convey autumn and fall and the October of the year. But Spoon, you know what I mean? It's sort of you kind of have to know the inside joke about that to get that from the meaning.
Well, yes and no. I think the sentiment in it is certainly in the song. The time of year is not necessarily in the song, but having the title basically makes it clear that when it's happening. And I think it's a good thing. I mean, there's other songs. There's multiple songs named November that you wouldn't know they took place in November unless it was in the title. So I think yours still qualifies. It certainly qualifies for me. I think just the title makes me think of that song when it's October, and also vice versa, that when it's October, I think of that song. Also, it's a very uplifting song for a fall song. A lot of people love fall and the crispness of the air, and they look very forward to it, and they're looking forward to the apples and the flannel shirts and the bonfires in the backyard and all these things. And I'm one of those people who it always makes me think of, summers being over, and I think it all goes back to when I was a kid. I never liked going back to school, frankly, and I always get that. I still now at the Labor Day get that feeling of, oh, geez, it's all going to be over. And having spent a month in Cape May this year for the first time ever, I can tell you that last week in Cape May after Labor Day, I was feeling that big time, even though I was working the whole time I was there. But anyway, yes, it's a very uplifting fall song. There are certainly some songs out there that are that way. But I think, for poetic reasons, it's usually the opposite. The fall usually is more somber and has more of a, end of summer heading into, unpleasantness. Certainly if you grew up in Northwest Ohio, November, I mean, it is flat. A glacier kept its keister on that there for thousands of years. So it is as flat can be. And with these very flat little standing things of treeless woods with gunmetal low gray skies forever. I'm not a big fan of autumn as a result. But speaking of October, I want to jump back to September for a second, because there's a song that, same kind of thing. I would say when it comes to September and fall, ever since I was a freshman in college, and going back, because this album goes back before then, My Old School by Steely Dan. Can't get into autumn without putting that song on. It's always been very evocative of memories of my freshman year in college, being there in September and cranking that song out the window and that kind of stuff. So that's a big one. And one other I'll say about September very quickly. Here's another former big shot from a band, had a big solo career. Years ago, I was hitchhiking in Vermont and New Hampshire, and I was in a tiny little New Hampshire town at night outside of a little soda pop and cigarette store. And this fella came zooming out, young guy came flying out of the store and jumped into his little tiny sports car. And I looked down, and right then playing in the store was Don Henley's Boys of Summer. And about, now the Boys of Summer are gone, and that sort of fall song. And I looked down at his bumper sticker to see a Grateful Dead bumper sticker with the skeleton roses, the skull with the rose crown, right when the song said Deadhead sticker on a Cadillac. This wasn't a Cadillac, it was an Opel or some little tiny roadster. But then they zoomed off, and I, at the time, as a young person, it blew my mind of the serendipity of it all. And I went home and listened to that Skull and Roses album, I'm sure.
Did you find out later that was Don Henley in the car?
No, it wasn't Don Henley. I know that for a fact. But
all right. But I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse. That was going to be my big curveball at the end of this episode. Boys of Summer is one of my favorite fall songs, and I thought I would get lambasted by you and the audience for picking a song of summer, because I really think it's a fall song, but the title would suggest otherwise.
What they're talking about, though, is that summer's over. And now that your summer, or whatever, if the metaphor is summer being over, but it's all fading away and it's all going away. Same thing with Led Zeppelin's Ramble On. But maybe we're going to find some other upbeat songs.
I know where we can go to look for them. Facebook. Our Facebook friends. Spoon and I took the opportunity to ask our Facebook friends, what do you think is the best song about autumn? And I quote, Candy came through with Harvest Moon. I appreciate that, Candy. Good seeing you. We're going to go see you, your alter ego, tomorrow. Stevie Nicks is playing in Hershey, so I will think of you because that's who you are. You got to hear this girl sing, Spoon, exactly like Stevie Nicks. Somebody named, let me read this right, Marshall Fleischer.
Never heard of him.
Fall in Philadelphia, Hall & Oates. I had to Google that one. That's a cool tune that I've never heard before. What's up, Marshall?
Well, he spent a lot of falls in Philadelphia.
You know that one, Spoon?
No, I don't know that tune. So that's cool. That's what I like of these kind of shows, because it turns me on to stuff I'm not familiar with.
Chris, our buddy from UMGF, says George Winston's Thanksgiving. Don't know that one.
Oh, yeah. George Winston, solo pianist. And he has a couple of albums that were huge in the early 70s. And the Winter album was on my turntable, my dad's turntable, every Christmas, really from Thanksgiving all the way through Christmas, in a stack that also included Charlie Brown's Christmas, of course. But yeah, George Winston, very evocative, very sparse. These days they would call it, I guess, not mood music, but ambient piano music, but really beautiful. Great call. That's excellent. Gold star.
Nice. Oh, we're gonna rank these people. That's good. Our buddy Jim. Speaking of ranking, we ranked some Scotch with Jim at NASFest. Old Tennessee by Dan Fogelberg. Don't know that one.
Oh, that's a great choice. That's a great choice. That's funny. I wonder if that's the song I was thinking of. There was something boring in the back of my head about Tennessee and fall, and I bet you that's it. I was thinking at first it was the tune that Steve Earle wrote for Townes Van Zandt after he died, Fort Worth Blues, but that's actually referring to Tennessee being cool and green in the spring. So I was like, no, that's not it. I bet you that's it. Great call. Thank you, Jim. Great call.
Right on, Jim. And I bet he was typing that from a sunny 72 degrees in SoCal. That's what he always tells us. Speaking of sunny and SoCal, now for something completely different, our friend Colin from Under the Hill, Autumn Almanac by the Kinks. Did we talk about that yet?
No, we have not. Good call. I'm not the least bit surprised. That was actually on my list coming up in terms of songs that have autumn in it and that make me then think of autumn. So, and not the least bit surprised. Collins, good to hear from you. I replied to your email way too late because I was traveling and all that, and I'm hoping you got it, hoping you're well. And thank you for that, showing that great minds think alike, or kink alike in this case.
Our buddy Jack, Urge for Going, another vote for the Joni Mitchell song, although he doesn't say Joni Mitchell here, so I have to assume he's like me, and he likes the Crosby and Nash version, but thank you, Jack. Spoon, if you didn't see this yet, Jack invited Marshall and I to a very cool house concert a couple weekends ago, or I should say a couple weekdays ago. We played at not Jack Yard, but Jack Yard Bar. So go find Friends of Jack Yard.
Oh yeah, I saw the videos. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
that was excellent. And
you got to get in there. This is such a cool room. Thank you again, Jack. We had more fun than we could ever tell you, even if we spent every day telling you how much we had. We had more than that, so thank you. Keeping with the UMGF, Reese, our buddy Reese, our bandmate, he votes October again for me. So thank you very much, Reese, now that we let the cat out of the bag. And we agree that a song can be called fall, even though the lyrics don't specifically say as much. Really appreciate you giving me that vote. Tom says Walkin' Man by James Taylor. I always forget about that song. It's one of my favorites.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That was not on my list, but what was on my list is Sweet Baby James, which mentions that the 1st of December was covered in snow, and it's still fall and 1st of December. So that's an autumnal sort of, that's kind of a Thanksgiving song for me.
I would have listed that under winter, but you're one of those that goes right by September, leaks into summer and fall, and you got the cutoff date on the number, so I'll give you that one. How about this? I don't know if I've recognized 2 songs so far. Autumn by the Edgar Winter Group.
Not familiar. Have not listened to a lot of Edgar Winter Group, so that's interesting. But I knew that he had a song called Autumn. Tom Waits got a song called. I mean, Tom Waits is November, but yeah, that's what I was saying. There are a variety of songs that have names like that you assume we're going to make people think of autumn, but I've never heard that one. So another one I can look up.
And I can't speak for you, Spoon, but all these are going on to my to-do list. After this program, I'm going to make it a point between now and our next recording session. I want to get to know these songs because I appreciate your input. Another vote for Autumn Leaves. This is from James. He lists Doris Day version, so maybe that's the one you meant from the 50s?
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. All the big singers did it. I think Sinatra's probably the most famous one, but that's very cool. The Doris Day version, you don't hear her name much anymore. Though I've got a certain friend who's had a huge crush on her throughout his childhood. It's kind of his, confessional crush was Doris Day, which I have to say, what I thought was pretty funny, given her goody two shoes sort of image, though. Though I guess I can understand that. So not mentioning any names, Bill, but it's just we all had ours. Mine was Annette Funicello. I'll just put that out there when I was a little boy. But
and if you're checking your bingo card at home, how many people thought we would say Edgar Winter and Doris Day in the same minute? All right, another one from Tom. This is one that really makes a lot of sense to me. I would have brought it up if I had a vote today, but I don't. Leaves That Are Green, Simon and Garfunkel. That's really nice and deliberate.
Ooh, yeah, beautiful tune, very evocative. I'm always shocked at the maturity of his compositions as a young man. I mean, he's the guy who wrote Old Friends, after all. But yeah, Leaves Are Green. If you don't know it, seek it out. It's a short, really, really nice song. Again, a metaphorical of, for relationships, just like April Come She Will. But yeah, Leaves Are Green. And there's another song from either that album or one of those albums right around there that also always makes me think of fall, but I can't think of what it is right now. So I'll have to rack my brain. But great song.
I'm laughing because I'm looking down, and not this one, but a couple of suggestions later, there's a very questionable entry. But Irv Potter says Boys of the Fall. Never heard of that one.
Not familiar. Does he say what the artist is?
He doesn't. I wonder if that makes me think of baseball.
Yeah, well, that's true, but let's see. Yes, by the way, the Guardians are doing amazing. Cleveland Guardians, thank you very much. Go Cleveland. I think they are the first team ever to go into the fall with 4 pitchers under a certain ERA or whatever. I can't remember what it is right now. But let's see. You call it Boys of Fall.
Yes.
Boys of Fall. Kenny Chesney. Oh, what do you know?
Ah.
And hilarity, you say baseball. Apparently, somebody made a video, if it's not the original video, that shows Sean Payton, football coach. So it looks like they're talking about football and the song. My brother's a big Kenny Chesney fan, but I'm not familiar with that song. I'll have to look it up. Thank you for that tip.
Are we going to carefully let football slide into this conversation, or is that for the playoffs?
Well, just because I said that there's a chance that Dallas might make the playoffs this year doesn't mean you have to get your hopes up.
Well, maybe we should just leave it to talking about like week 1 of this season and then let everything else play out. There was a game between his Brownies and my Dallas Cowboys, and without like soiling this whole episode, go just check NFL.com scores and do what you want with that information. But let's see here. The cat's here. All right.
Hello, Nisanu.
Tim, our friend Tim says Type O Negative's entire October Rust album. I sense it's the wrong audience for that, but you never know. So that makes me think it's not Martin guitar related, but I will assume anything by Type O Negative might not be. But that's got nothing to do. That's the name of the program. We appreciate you saying that. I'm going to look that up just as much as anything else. I won't say that I'm familiar with it. It's probably something I would like, actually. Barry says, try to remember An Urge for Going, but only with Tom Rush covering it. I didn't know Tom Rush covered Urge for Going. That's 3 for that.
Well, that's very cool.
Now, so far, we're probably past the halfway point. I really feel everybody's been sincere. A lot of great ideas have been said. This next one, I'm going to say it, and you got to look right at the camera and tell me, is he just pulling my lariat, or does he really mean this? Grant says, it's Raining Men.
That's interesting. I wonder why, because I know the song exists, but I'm not familiar with it. And I don't know anything about the lyrics. This is similar. Maybe it's one of these things where he's making a joke because you're talking about fall, and so the men are falling. Or maybe it actually reminds him of autumn. I'm afraid I'm not familiar with it. It's not the Waitresses. Who did it?
You're giving him way too much benefit of the doubt. I can't believe this is even sincere. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know if you caught a glimpse of my autumnal lounge pants, my orange and brown plaid Cleveland Browns, brown and orange lounge pants. But
unfortunately, we did.
Yes, the team that has the most losses of any team in the past 25 years.
Wow. That fits you so well.
That's why I root for Man City in the Premier League, the team that has the most wins and best team in the entire world, because all of my American teams, the Browns, the Raiders, and the Lions. I mean, the Lions are finally doing good, but I mean, how's that for a depressing adolescence and young adulthood and later adulthood? And
when you thought this episode couldn't get more sad.
autumn of my lifehood.
Wow, your whole life is autumn. We only have 1 or 2 more tunes from our Facebook friends. Autumn's Here by Hawksley Workman. That I don't know at all.
No.
Our friend Cameron said that one. Evan says Cheryl Wheeler's When Fall Comes to New England, another New England reference.
Good call. That one hadn't popped in my head, but yeah.
I'm a little familiar with that one. That's a pretty cool tune. A little bit Irish, right? Has like an Irish feel to it.
Yeah, I'd say that Celtic-ish, yes.
Back to the beginning of fall, September song, says Bill. Doesn't say the artist, though.
Oh, okay. Well, we're stopping right there because September song, beautiful song. And this is an interesting thing because it's featured in Woody Allen's Radio Days, which has a soundtrack from the 30s and 40s, and it's set in the late 30s and early 40s and related to radio celebrities and fictitious and people listening to the radio and all this stuff, where there is this absolutely haunting melody version of September song that's slow and evocative and moody and melancholy, and it's not on the soundtrack. It's never been credited. I've spent years and years trying to find the recording. I even tried to write to Woody Allen's people years and years ago about this. Never got any response back. The tune is originally was written for a Broadway show, Knickerbocker Holiday, actually, I think, and just to give this guy a song. And that's another one. Sinatra, Tony Bennett, everybody's done it. Doris Day's probably done it. And But it's done all kinds of ways, very sappy string ways, big horn ways. But this is just like a haunting, sparse piano with backing instruments. Well, just yesterday, I did another big deep dive in the internet, and I finally found it. And I found a website, a guy named Richard Hyman. He is a composer, jazz pianist. He did the arrangement for it and did the recording of it, and it was never made available commercially, and he never got any credit for it, probably because he was being paid, I don't know, because who knows what contractual stuff was involved. So wow. Was never mentioned. And he just died not that long ago, unfortunately, but absolutely beautiful. And if you ever watch Radio Days, highly recommend it. It's great fun. But anyway, great tune, really cool, evocative tune. I think Bing Crosby may have had the first big hit with it but you can hear you can go on YouTube and actually hear the original recording. I can't remember the actor who sang it originally, but it's on YouTube. But anyway, nice. Very cool song. Thank you for picking that out.
The only 2 songs left are repeats. Julie gives us, I think, the 4th vote for Harvest Moon. Great tune. And Merle echoes The Boys of Fall from Kenny Chesney. So,
and Angel Harp is telling Maury that
that if it could go wrong today, it will.
So I have one. If you're saying that's the end, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm a little disappointed. Nobody came out with Autumn in New York. Those classic songs again. Sinatra, everybody under the sun has done it. But I'm going to point you out to Diana Krall. Diana Krall put out an album in 2020. Very depressed at what was going on in that era. Very depressed she couldn't get to New York. The pandemic was revving up and all that stuff's going on. And she did this tune, 2 songs, Rainy Day Man by Bonnie Raitt. Wanted to mention that one, which has basically, without getting in trouble with copyright, she rhymes Another Fall with Don't Help at All, which rhymes with Feeling Cold and Small, that kind of stuff. So one of those classic fall makes me depressed songs. But Autumn in New York, Diana Krall, I don't see the album, but it came out in 2020. But it features Russell Malone on guitar, and it's driven by this beautiful jazz guitar playing. And he just died in August. And he played with her. He was her main guitarist for many years in the beginning of her career. And then he went off into his own solo career. But he came back to do this record with her that was actually recorded over like a couple of years. And she was feeling depressed about what was going on. And so she put together this beautiful album from unreleased tracks from previous years. Go check it out online. There's also, I'm sure, a live version of them playing it online as well, but the album version, just wonderfully recorded and beautiful. I'm not sure if he's using his old Archtop Alvarez that he played, but not Alvarez.
Martin?
What's the brand, the Gibson brand? They bought them, jazz guitar, Ibanez. Epiphone, I'm sorry. I think it's an Epiphone. I think he's playing an Epiphone, exactly. I don't know if he's playing it on that recording, but that's what he used to play. But anyway, check it out. The late Russell Malone, one of the great, jazz guitar sidemen of our generation, though he was older than we were. But yeah, check it out.
Well, I have one song of my own, but before I get that far, you still owe us one song of your own. Literally, let us hear one of your songs that you wrote about fall. You promised it earlier.
Okay, well, it's not about fall, but it's set in fall, and it's basically a true story. And the original imagery of it was being picked up at a train station in Toledo, Ohio, and being driven by a neighbor lady down to my hometown. And that's all I'm going to say about it, other than the fact that it was one of these things where it was September, but it was abnormally cold, and it was just at dawn, and there was this frost kind of dew over everything that was right on the edge of being frost, and that's and very dark gray autumnal skies, and very different than the typical happy September. And it was not very happy reasons for having to go back to the hometown. But anyway, It's called Prodigal Son. And yesterday I just sat down and decided to try out my new phone, see how well it records, and put out this song. I hadn't played it in quite a while, so it's got some little rough edges here and there. But anyway, it is my offering for autumnal songs for this podcast. Prodigal Son. Drive the dawn down frosted fields, gray over home. Down the shrouded morning of an early fall. Pauline tries to break the ice with the smallest talk she knows now. I'm sure everyone's glad you're all coming home. He will begin us. He will live in us. And the spindly spider, in spite of his guard downs, put a new sheet on for the cockeyed preacher man. Pauline lets me cry on her as the close friends gather round him now. I'm sure everyone's glad you're all coming home. He will begin us. He will live in us. He will begin us. He will live in us. I sit here watching you breathe while the slats in the closet light up ever weaves. In your delirium, you're already lost in zeal. Wish there was some way that I could set you free. Geese out after pits of shouting scattered everyone. Now it's up to you to find with them and do the sun. Know you hate to leave the things that you've begun, but there's nothing left for you to suffer to get it done. I sit here watching you breathe. I sit here watching you breathe. Oh, that goes back to 1994. But anyway,
Wow.
Thanks for listening.
Well, and I'll try a little bit to lighten things up by saying my last entry, or my entry of what I think of a fall song, kind of goes full circle and brings back my actual tune. Van Morrison, I would call his later work, I'm going to say it's recent stuff, but this song's probably from like the early 2000s. When the Leaves Come Falling Down, it's either on the Days Like This album or Back on Top. I forget exactly when it came out, but we actually bought the CD while on vacation in Cape Cod the year it came out. And I remember Lori listening to it in the car way less than I wanted to, and I'm replaying it. And I'll put an album like that on; it'll be in the car the whole time we're up there. And the lyric is, "In September, when the leaves come falling down, in September, when the leaves come falling down," and she'll just be in the passenger seat of the car. I'm like, "What? They come down in October, and I've heard this song 20 times now." So
he is from Ireland. It's a little colder up there.
Well, I know, but when I'm hearing it where I want to hear it, and it becomes my soundtrack to my autumn in my Cape Cod, you're early, and you know, and we can go on off tangents where she knows I like Van Morrison so much, I'm going to give him poetic license way more than she will. But yeah, that's one of my favorite fall songs, just in the spirit of finding a song that has the word fall in it, or leaves, or autumn. So that's my entry. I can't say it stacks up really properly against a lot of our great Facebook friends. Our patrons came up with some great ideas. It's kind of cool every once in a while, and I want to thank Spoon for the show idea, getting these lists together, asking the people to listen to this show to tell us what they're thinking about, even if it's just a little glimpse into what you think of musically and seasonally. You know, we can leave this episode now that I know, besides the It's Raining Men guy, I could sort of talk to our friends in the future and have a little bit more of an understanding what music they like and what music means to them, at least at certain seasons. So this was a pretty fun exercise.
I agree. So I'm glad it worked out. Thanks to everyone for coming up with these great songs. I look forward to hearing the ones I've never heard before. So that's always a fun part of these kind of programs.
Are we almost going to be obligated to do a winter Christmas version coming up soon?
Well, I think we have to get to Halloween first, since I'm pretty happy that no one jumped into that apple barrel. So we may have to think about that. But I'm sure there's at least 20 other ideas we could come up with song themes.
Isn't it just Monster Mash?
Well, that might be one of the 20.
20 questions. That went right over my headphones.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. 20 questions where one of us, in this case, the wise guy, being me, thinks up a Martin guitar that is currently for sale, and the smart guy, which is Maury, has 20 questions to try to guess what this guitar is. And I'm actually going to give him a thematic hint.
Okay.
That the amazing artist Peter Cree has a long history of doing all kinds of really cool things to musical instruments, and this is a model that I know that he's actually done, aftermarket artwork, where he does this great artwork of people's guitars, and not just guitars, all kinds of instruments. Though this one is a Martin guitar, and that may be giving away too much, but we're going to see if Maury can think up what this guitar is. He gets 20 guesses plus 3 model guesses to guess what this guitar might be. And so 20 questions are on the clock now.
The 21st question, if I guess this right, do we get to get Peter Cree on the podcast?
Oh, it'd be great. We should definitely do a Peter Cree podcast. I mean, so his work is so visual, but we can certainly talk about it, and it might entice people to sign up as Patreon members so they can see the video version of the podcast.
Now you're thinking like me. All right, is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
That's one question, and yes.
Is this guitar in the 15 series?
Sadly, yes.
Is one of these guitars owned by our friend, won't name last names, but Tony?
I honestly don't know. So that's 3 questions. I don't know which Tony you're talking about, but I don't know any Tonys that necessarily own this guitar.
Does this guitar have the triple O body size?
Yes.
Does this guitar have the paddle headstock not slotted?
That is your first no, other than the Tony one.
Is this guitar the triple O 15 SM?
Yes. Shouldn't have given it away. Should have brought up Peter after I started talking. I should have said, shouldn't have mentioned Peter, should have mentioned him after. Because he does these wonderful autumnal tops with the leaves and designs that are very, on those mahogany tops. That really cool work. He doesn't just do those, but those are some of my favorite ones.
Oh, yeah.
Very like fallen leaves looking designs on some of these beautiful guitars that make them even more beautiful. So check out Peter Cree's work. He's a local Pennsylvania artist, so check him out.
Yep. If you're ever at the Martin factory, you are less than a 10-minute walk to his place. So that's how connected he is. And I went for the comedy angle during that rousing rendition of 20 questions, but there's nothing funny about the stuff he does. It's really, really, really interesting. Great guy. We should try to get him on, even if it's going to be mostly an audio version of it. But thank you very much for giving me those hints, because that saved me at least 11 questions. So thank you.
You're welcome, especially since that model's come up recently. I would assume you would have bypassed it.
Well, folks, that's going to wrap things up for our Autumn Songs episode of Martins and More. I want to thank all of you guys for your submissions, all of our Facebook friends, all of our patrons, and we look forward to the possibility of not only a Halloween episode, but a winter episode, and hope you guys will join us and have as much fun on that episode as we had on this one. From all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.